Tumia Bima Pap kwa kupiga nyota 150 nyota 51 alama ya reli au kwa WhatsApp namba 0764166066 na ujipatie bima ya dereva kipato.
Bima Pap, urahisi wa maisha.
Greetings, welcome to another episode of The Citizen exclusive with the Pocket on Son. It's yet again a great day. We are going to have a very exciting conversation today. Our guest is Michael Coudrey. So Michael Coudrey is an international investor, an entrepreneur, and a visionary, if I may say so. He is currently in Dar es Salaam in Tanzania. He has a bit of investments across the world, but also here in Tanzania within the real estate and agriculture space. Michael, welcome to Mwananchi Communications Limited. Welcome to The Citizen.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here and happy to discuss with you.
Great. First and foremost, you have quite an experience within the investment space in Africa, in Tanzania. I was reading a little bit about you, and I heard that you started your first business when you were 14 years old, which you sold to a different company at an undisclosed amount. And then later on, you went to start these other businesses in various portfolios. So first and foremost, just to get things started, what gave you that drive to start, to enter into the business world at such a young age, and how did you manage to make it?
I think fundamentally I understood things differently than maybe most. I always saw that the conventional route, and my mother is a physician, she's a cardiologist. My father was an entrepreneur, so maybe I embodied some of the spirits from both of them moving into the business world. But I always saw the conventional route as something that was exactly that, it was conventional. And I always felt that maybe I wanted to operate at a few deviations above the conventional route, and in which case, a lot of that comes down to knowledge acquisition and understanding and realizing that your capacity is so much more than maybe what you've been led to believe. And that internal growth and progression and maybe even questioning led me down a path of entrepreneurship, but also which led me down to challenge of self and progress and growth, and really the drive and ambition to move forward and move mountains and hopefully build skyscrapers.
Okay, so you decided to sell your first business at the age of 14. Why did you decide to sell the business? Did a great opportunity present itself, or what was the reason behind it?
Starting that business, in America we were very blessed because I grew up in the age of internet. And so internet for us was first coming around when I was maybe 8 to 10, where it was widespread and accessible. And so, I remember even those days, in order to log in, we had AOL Online. It was making the DSL modem sounds and everything. Maybe some of my 30 pluses can relate to this. But we grew up on this. And what most people didn't recognize back then is that the internet will and has become such a source of knowledge and information. And I was very knowledge hungry back then, and so I said, well, what can I do with this internet? What can I do? And so the first things that I did was I learned to build websites or put them together through templates. And you take the good things from everywhere and code bases that you can have available, and you display it. And the second thing was payment processing online. And when we were first looking at payment processing, even me as a very young age, this was in its early infancy. So to accept a card over the internet was almost unheard of. And most people might not even trust to do so. It was very beginning. So we launched a sunglasses retail. Yeah. And it was doing so phenomenally well, and I had the marketing expertise to grow it very quickly and integrate payment processing and make the graphics and the branding so superb. And within the first week, even within the first 7 days of launch, the sales were so substantial that it was like a life-changing moment for me. And continue on for some time, and we an offer came onto the table, which was a substantial sum for such a young person. Yeah. And I didn't even know how to drive, but yet now I could buy 5 cars. It was like this, and so I said, let me take it and reevaluate and see what's next, because I think it's looking maybe towards the future 10 or 15 or 20 years. Do I want to stay doing maybe sunglasses, or do I want to expand into other ventures?
Perfect, because now the next stage of your business path is also equally interesting, because you decided to invest in various portfolios. So you had real estate, and then you also had a digital business. So why did you decide to diversify, to invest in different sectors other than stick into one area?
When I look at a particular sector, I look for opportunity that maybe other people don't see. And so a lot of my business investment or activities comes down to the data. It really comes down to data and market opportunity, and is there a possibility for us to penetrate into a particular market, but do so at such a scale where we can capture sizable market share, and then really leverage that towards the majors and potentially even compete with some of the finest and the greats. And so anything that we do, we really look to do it at scale. And even if you look at some of the digital things that we do, especially maybe for some political candidates in the United States, we've been a bit active in terms of digital solutions for them. And we do so in a degree of sophistication that's a little bit higher than what you would commonly expect. And the reason that was launched in the first place, to help politicians, and most of the time politics, it's a divisive game. It's a tough game. It's, really a tough game with some really strong-headed people a lot of the time. And that comes with the territory, of course, and I have nothing but respect for it, especially if you engage in a battles like this. But the reason was to give an opportunity, to give a voice to the people that might need it the most. I particularly fancy change makers, people that look at the world differently and say, I don't think it has to be this way. I think it can be potentially improved. I think there's something that can happen here, and I'm willing to spend the next 5 or 10 or 15 years of my life dedicated to improving, advancing, and progressing even activities that are happening in my country or even globally or worldwide. And so that company was specifically founded to raise and elevate individuals through a degree of sophistication in marketing and other digital tools, especially on social media, to give them a voice and a capacity to run successfully, to win, to become into a position where they have an opportunity to affect change. And I felt like if I could provide the knowledge and on-ground execution for them to allow them to get into that position, then I think that I would have done my part in the sense where their change is now was contingent upon our activities to help them get there, and I felt like that was, in a sense, a way that I can change things for the better.
Okay, interesting. So now, specifically now talking about Tanzania, you have invested in the real estate and also agriculture sectors. You started what is known as a venture capital backed agriculture company. That's the Tova Farms. Can you just help us understand what it means by venture capital backed agriculture company? Now, how does it operate?
Yeah, definitely. When I first had interest to come to the Tanzanian market, many investors, they said, why would you go there? Because this is an emerging economy, it's in East Africa, maybe the regulatory landscape is not so solidified, maybe there's a potential for loss of investment. You can look at a number of different countries and there's always going to be risk. And so the first thing that investors do, or the first thing that people like me do, is we analyze risk. And so we identified a number of different risks, and this was all compiled into a briefing amongst investors. And when I was pitching my idea, I said, I want to go to Tanzania specifically. I don't want to go to Kenya. I don't want to go to South Africa. I want to go to Tanzania specifically. And I want to make this investment, and I want to put millions of dollars into the country to build, which is something that I fancy very much, is to build and develop and create, and do it at a large commercial scale. And so venture capital backed essentially means is that we have 16 venture capital firms that came along this journey to invest with us, to give us the opportunity and more finance to really enter the market and penetrate. And so we have investors, and so they're venture capital firms, they're organizations which make investments in a variety of sectors, and you can go to them and demonstrate why your capacity and why your skill set and why your potential for investment can bring a sizable return for these investors, and you ask them to participate, in which they did. And I think some perhaps were a little bit doubtful coming because there is risk involved, but I think that we've demonstrated time and time again that the investment was correct, and it is lucrative in its nature. Okay,
so maybe now you can just explain a little bit about what is it exactly that you do here in Tanzania, because we know that it's in real estate and it's within the agriculture space. But just some more of the key insights, like what exactly do you do?
Yeah, we own a fairly substantial commercial production site for avocado, and so we produce and export avocado. We chose Tanzania in particular because it's got great fertile land. It's got an incredible workforce, it's based primarily, the GDP activities are heavily reliant on agriculture, and so it's very specialized in agriculture, and so that means that areas in the economy are specialized in agriculture but also tailored to it, and so tractors, machinery, spare parts, maintenance and development along these sectors is right in line, and so we felt like the infrastructure for support of agriculture activities was here, and so we wanted to engage it. And, you know, I think the next step for us as a business really is to increase capacity for processing. Because in agriculture you can have two things, and one is production, but one is processing and even export. And I think that, you know, Tanzania as a country has tremendous opportunity, especially given the current administration. They've very much had a specific focus to attract foreign investment into the country. And maybe that wasn't the case 5 years ago or 10 years ago, or it wasn't so attractive for a foreign investor to come. But now what we're seeing is that the regulatory environment is changing for the better. Reforms are being made in unparalleled time. Changes potentially even to finance or tax or other things like this are being looked at. And there appears to be a willingness from government to attract foreign investment and listen, to say, what are the areas we need to improve and how can we improve them? And they take it into consideration. And quite frankly, I haven't really, it's a very rare occurrence to see a government so willing to attract foreign investment, but also maintain the security of that investment. In many places in Africa, I've been and I've done the deals, I've done the negotiation, I've talked to government officials, and I've looked at the regulatory landscape, and I've looked at the potential for risk or expropriation or loss of investment. And in my opinion, I saw Tanzania as a rising trajectory. And at a rising trajectory, it's just like purchasing a stock at a low price. You know that in the future it will appreciate. You know that things will get only better, not worse. And so that's why we came into the market in the first place.
So you've been in operation for 3 years now.
That's correct.
If you're to look back, what have been some of the ups and downs since you started operating? Because this is a business at the end of the day. So definitely there are certain risks involved, there's certain challenges. So if you're to assess, what have been some of the highlights of your business since it was established, or what have been some of the challenges?
I think the highlights really are the opportunity to build something of substantial caliber. The fact that we've built facilities and housing and accommodation, and the looks on even some of our staff when we say, we brought in a lot of staff from local farms and places where they were working previously, and maybe the standard, it wasn't so international, in the sense where maybe the electricity was not so reliable, or maybe the accommodation was very small, or maybe there was just some issues here and there. Maybe the standard was a little bit lower. So when we came into the market, we're building from an American standpoint or from a Western standpoint, and so all of our staff is living in, we deployed so many houses. We've built houses for our staff. We've built accommodation. We have the fastest Wi-Fi, the most reliable electricity. We set up a huge solar field on the farm, so we have 100% uptime on electrical use. We can use it anytime. We set up a cell repeater. The tower is going up into the sky. It's substantial. And we brought in, we made sure that there was reliable connection so that people can talk to their families and that they have connection to the outside world. And so we really came into the market with the expectation we want to increase the standard for the market, not just do what everyone else is doing. We wanted to go above and beyond that. So when I put someone in, when I promote someone into a managerial position, they've been with us for 2 years. They've worked so hard and so dedicated, and then I say, I want you to move into this house. We've built this house for you. The look on their faces is it's the best thing you could ask for, and it brings great joy to provide both for our employees, but to provide for our stakeholders, and hopefully to even provide in some capacity to help grow the country. But in terms of benefit, I think our people is the best. In terms of challenges, I think that Tanzania is growing, and as an emerging economy, it's growth and progress oriented. But of course, it's not fully there yet. And as many countries, they're not fully. There's always an opportunity to grow and develop more. And so I think maybe there's some limitations in capacity for maybe processing in business, or potentially maybe accepting card payments down in the real rural South, or potentially maybe there's some lacking of infrastructure in terms of logistics and road, which might be slightly problematic for us to export. And so we've solved a lot of these challenges from the private sector itself. And so I think, in my opinion, the private sector has opportunity to build if the government allows it. And so in most cases, from what I've seen, when we ask the government, we say, we want to build a 35-kilometer road going from the farm passing through the village. We'll make it double wide. We'll crown it so that the rain is drawing out. We'll put culverts in as necessary. Here's our architectural plans, and here's what we'd like to do. Will you allow us to do it? And we've never had a time where they said no. And maybe in some other countries they would say, well, you have to go through this extensive thing, and then 8 months later there's still no road being built. I feel like maybe some of those roadblocks, they weren't there for us, which we've encountered in maybe other countries. And so I think maybe those would be the challenges, but also with every challenge comes a solution from a bright mind, and our team is, I think, very well equipped to handle these kind of challenges.
So it's interesting that you've talked about the logistical issue, because just over I think the past 1 week or so, I interviewed the permanent secretary within the Ministry of Minerals, and he talked about the same issue, that the logistics, the infrastructure set up in rural Tanzania is not ideal, because that's where most of the mines are located, and you dealing within the agriculture sector, most of the farms are in the villages. I just want us to key in a little bit about that, the logistical issue, the logistical challenge, because you say that the private sector has taken initiative to build some of the roads. But what do you think is a more sustainable way? Do you think that maybe the government needs to put that as a particular focus to ensure that the roads that lead up to the main farm, the roads that lead up to some of the mining sites need to be upgraded? What is your view on the logistical challenge within Tanzania for investors like yourself?
Let me go first into perhaps from a governmental standpoint. The way that I see it is that road building is an extensive task which requires a lot of capital investment. And some of the time that can be very challenging, both for the execution to build a road, but also for the fundraising. And so maybe it's something to consider, that the government might consider to do, is to either issue bond or potentially raise investment and allow that investment to be deployed for road building through road levy, perhaps. Like, for instance, over a period of 30 or 60 or 80 years, perhaps they can recoup that investment, and perhaps there might be investors that are willing to finance the building of that, so long as they can recoup or even generate an ROI. And so maybe I would even consider them to start looking more towards the private sector for the financing of the infrastructure, which of course they do now, but maybe there's a potential for creativity there that maybe sometimes is underlooked through maybe road levy or road access of use, or potentially even private sector contribution to build or something like this. And the second thing I think is that I think it would be very important to take a look where the congestion is the most, in terms of, let's say there's a deep congestion of agricultural sites here without road access, especially tarmac access. And I think the government is they took a great initiative to build database and sort of understand where everyone is and which sectors they're involved in. Maybe there's a great congestion of mines here, or maybe there's a great congestion of agricultural sites here, but perhaps this area here is underserved because there's no tarmac road. A very substantial issue with export, especially with fresh produce, is that you need tarmac access to allow companies like Maersk or CMA to bring refrigerated trucks into the facility or into the site, and then ultimately have capacity to leave. But in the rain season, the problem that many face is that dirt roads, you can't allow 23-ton trucks to go onto those. It's too dangerous and they'll get stuck, and so you need tarmac access. And so where we are, there isn't tarmac access. There's plans for it to come close, but it's not just there yet. And so we've had to make alternative arrangement, which has complicated some issues for us. And we hope perhaps that maybe we'll be able to approach to the government and ask them if there's capacity to extend the current tarmac road, which is close, just enough to us so that we can have those tonnage trucks come in. And I think if they have the willingness to listen to the private sector and take a look at the data and see where the congestions lie between agricultural sites or mining or various sectors, and they have capacity to build out tarmac or build out roads to that, the increase in economic output for those areas is unparalleled, I have to say, because even if you look at places going from Jombe up to Matemwe, even up to Lupembe, you can see that it's double wide, it's very wide roads, however, it's mud roads, and there's a lot of timber companies that go in there, there's a lot of agriculture that goes in there. However, no one can operate at a scale that they could be operating at if there was tarmac road there. Everyone is limited by the infrastructure cap, by the capacity there. So if they put a tarmac road there, the the amount of additional economic output and growth and progress for every single business going along that way would be unparalleled.
Okay. So you've engaged with government quite extensively. Perhaps are these some of the ideas, the proposals that you've put on the table for them to consider? Okay, and the reception to that is that are they willing to listen? Are they looking into it? Because at the end of the day, if investors are proposing that maybe if a certain step is taken by the government, it will enable for this sector to open up a bit more. So are they receptive to these various ideas that are being put forward?
In my opinion, I think the Tanzanian government under the current administration is one of the most receptive to attracting foreign investors. They're willing to listen to stakeholders, which I think is a key differentiator as compared to maybe some negotiations and discussions we've had in other emerging economies. And under this administration, if we approach, even as foreign investors, but even as local investors, because you see trade groups propping up everywhere, you see individuals in agriculture or mining, and they're coming as a delegation to the government and saying, these are the challenges we face which are non-conducive, which allow a non-conducive business environment. We want to fix them. Can we have your ear? And a lot of the times the answer is yes. And a lot of the times that there is a fruitful discussion and potentially sometimes a tangible execution thereof, sometimes they take action on that. And I think from me personally, I've never had any government official or minister that I've met with here in Tanzania, if I express challenges and issues, but also the solution. You know, the private sector is great with offering solution and potential for a solution. And a lot of the times the government just needs to consider some of the stakeholders and the experts in the field. You know, for instance, we can bring in structural engineers from Europe, or we can bring in top talent, and we can allow them to do their job to analyze. And this might be the top talent of the world saying, the solution here is very clear. And then we can present that proposal to the government with the potential for them to consider. And I think when we do things like this and we bring in top talent and some of the greatest minds, they come up with plans that work for everybody, and it's mutually beneficial. And so if we come to the government with a mutually beneficial plan, the problem and the solution and the execution thereof, I've never had an issue where they said flat out, we don't want to do it, it's not something we'll engage, because it makes sense to make the reform, or it makes sense to make the improvement.
Okay. So Tova Farms is based in, is headquartered in the UAE.
That's correct.
Right. What was the reason to have your headquarters in the Middle East?
It's a great question. I think the Middle East is continuously progressing as potentially a capital for world economic policy, global economic policy, in the sense where the business environment is so conducive. The access to capital is so available. The infrastructure in terms of banking, financial technology, innovation, technology, everything is happening in the Middle East, and I think in particular it's happening in the United Arab Emirates. And I think places even like Dubai, the leadership there is so willing and so dedicated to continuously improving their processes and environment that it was almost too attractive to pass up the opportunity to engage there. And so we saw that Dubai was a great place for us to put our headquarters as we have intention to globally expand across many verticals. And so, you know, we're looking at places potentially, well, where can we go that will offer the best environment, you know, the lowest taxes, and if we do pay taxes, that it's a reasonable amount where we can still have capital to reinvest in the business. Right? Because we need to reinvest continuously into the business to reach our full operational capacity, but also to grow and expand and progress. And so we saw Dubai as this was the place for us to do it, and so we put our headquarters there. And quite frankly, I think it might have been one of the best decisions that we made in terms of corporate structuring, especially across, you know, multiple nations and things like this.
So if I may to ask, beyond the agriculture sector here in Tanzania, you've been in the country for 3 years, what do you think are some of the untapped potentials in the country beyond agriculture? Are you thinking, even personally, even though it's not something that you're thinking, but have you identified some other areas that are potential for, you know, big investors?
I have. Financial technology. Financial technology in the particular sense that, you know, as a Westerner, a lot of these things have already been sort of reformed, optimized, and deployed at a national scale. And so if you look at things like financial technology, we have Venmo or Cash App, and it's very quick, it's very easy, and most importantly, it's extremely, extremely convenient. And so when you present to the public, especially in maybe an emerging economy, an opportunity where you can either do something that's very convenient, or you can do something that's very inconvenient. They choose convenient every single time, and once you have that opportunity or solution to them, they never go back to inconvenience, because why would you? So if you look at even banking and financial technology, some of the processes can be substantially reformed. Even some of the deployment of their software and online systems, and I hate to throw a little bit of shade here, but it's out of date and it's in the past. Right? And so if you look at some of the other countries, their financial tech and their access to accounts and their quick facilitation of payment transfers and remittances and everything thereafter is so on point and so quick and so convenient. And so I can see that as lacking in Tanzania in some capacity. And I think that financial technology is a great investment. Furthermore, after that, I think mobile app and mobile app development can be big in Tanzania. You have some access of international players such as Uber and Lyft and Bolt and things like that. So we have some access here. But I think it's very preliminary, and I think if there's a substantial opportunity for digitization in the country. More and more people have smartphones, more and more people are staying connected on social media, and more people are utilizing these services, and they want the convenience of perhaps very quick, they order on the app and it comes. And I think maybe in the rural regions it's not so tapped, but I continuously see a growth trend in these sectors. And I think if there was a foreign investor or even a local investor to come in and analyze some of these processes and say, these have areas of improvement, I think that might be one of the best investments that they can make.
Okay, so as we wrap up, what is your vision for Tova Farms in Tanzania?
I think Tova Farms continues to expand, progress, and ultimately capture as much market share as we can. We want to be one of the largest production sites in all of East Africa, and we want to, most importantly, be a single origin production site in the sense where we've standardized our procedures, our practices, and our SOPs in a way that's to such an international standard that Tanzania becomes one of the hopefully largest avocado producers in the world and is recognized as such. And so if you look for quality class 1 Hass avocado, you know that Tanzania is the place that you should get it, and you should bring your business here to Tanzania. And if you're interested in agriculture activity, you should come to Tanzania. We want to set a reputational standard for the country to say that this is the place for this product, and we're so happy to engage to do that and take steps to do that. But in regards to the overall vision, we want to build, develop, and create something of substantial caliber which can not only impact thousands and thousands of lives, but change the landscape for the benefit of all.
Okay. Well, Michael, all the best to you, my brother.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.
Perfect. You were with me in Pocket Thompson for the Citizen Exclusive. Until next time, bye-bye.
Kabla tujaanza safari, wengi tukikumbuka tutahakikisha matairi, upepo upo fresh. Tutahakikisha spana na jeki zipo na zinafanya kazi. Tutahakikisha breki zinakamata, taa za mbele, nyuma, indicator, hazard zinawaka. Hapo sawa. Wifi zinafanya kazi. Tutaangalia oili, injini na maji. Tutanunua bima na bima papo ili zisome na kusomeka. Kisha gari inaoshwa. Yote hayo ni utayari wa chombo chako na changamoto za safari. Ila so kwa ajili yako wewe dereva. Dereva, umechukua hatua gani kulinda uhakika wa kuendelea kujipatia hela? Si unajua ya barabarani hayatabiriki.
Tumia bima pap kwa kupiga *150 *51 alama ya reli au kwa WhatsApp namba 0764166066 na ujipatie bima ya dereva kipato.
Umahiri wa dereva hauishii tu kwenye kumudu usukani, bali pia umakini wa kulinda kipato chake wakati wa majanga ya kifedha.
Bima Pub, urahisi wa maisha.